Hey everyone, this is Velveteen, and welcome to the very first episode of Nikke Lore, where I'll talk about everything lore related to Nikke, Goddess of Victory. Before we start, I would like to warn everyone watching this that there will be spoilers up to chapter around 26 in the main campaign. And why 26? Well, that's because I'm stuck in chapter 27. I haven't read ahead, so I'll fill in more lore as I progress further. If you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably click off this video because there will be plenty of spoilers for obvious reasons. For everyone else, let's get started. Today's very first episode is... What is a Nikke? This is a very broad question with many different answers. So let's start with the most obvious. A Nikke is a cyborg, a living human brain inside a supposedly steel body. They look like young women, carry guns, and fight humanity's greatest enemy, the Raptures. But why women, though? Why not giant robots instead? What about men? I know that many people will like to say it's because players don't want to see man-ass jiggling as they fire the gun, and it's made for fan service. But I will never explain lore with gameplay reasons, so let's see why it is. Early on in the Rapture invasion during the first early days of Nikke production, we see a recruitment poster asking for any adults aged 20 to 30. This did not specify gender, so early on they attempted to make male Nikkes. And above we can read a picture of Lilith pointing forward into the distance, meaning that this is after the first generation of Nikkes, the Grimm series, and Lilith being the prototype Nikke that all future Nikkes will be based off. Then, later on, we see another recruitment poster, this time only asking for females aged 10 to 25. No requirements for health. However, an extra examination will be performed by the research center if you have a brain disease. What happened here? From what we can assume, males and women above 25 have risk going through the nikification process. How do we know this? Well, through the manufacturing reports from one of the Nikke manufacturing plants. Jane, age 33, failure, 14.89% completion. Tom, age 19, another evidence that they did try to make male Nikkes before, failure error presents in body activation. Nana, female, age 21, post-mortem brain, failure explosive expansion of brain. With D3, we can clearly see that for one, male Nikkes were attempted and couldn't go through the process. The older woman has issues going through the process as well, and Nana, who had a post-mortem brain, had to explode. However, this shouldn't be the case because there has been many cases of post-mortem brains successfully going through the nikification process. For example, Yunhua. Before she became a Nikke, she was a commander who fought on the surface. After dying in battle, her body was found by a group of Nikkes and brought back to the Ark, and then forcibly turned into a Nikke. How does the Nikke process even work? Well, we'll get there. But first, to answer this question, can the dead be converted into Nikkes? The answer is yes. This is not the first time this happens, but this brings up an issue. The dead cannot consent. Is the Nikke process consensual? And the answer is mostly yes. The recruitment proves that, and multiple cases of children dreaming of becoming Nikke exist. Clearly the propaganda works. However, what about when that isn't the case? A lot of times it's the recently deceased or the terminally ill, or in even such cases as criminals. Although most of the ones we meet are happy to be alive, there may be more that are not, and we just haven't met them yet. The exotic squad, for example, are criminals turned into Nikkes and forced to fight for humanity. But isn't that dangerous? Nikkes are built for war. Would you trust a criminal? Well, there are nanomachines inside every Nikke brain called the nymph, short for neuro-implanted machine for the protection of humans. The nymph is actually a very interesting and complex thing that I will not go into too much detail right now. It deserves its own separate episode where I will go into detail with it. The very basic explanation, what it does is it controls the Nikkes to follow human commands. It is so much more than that, but I don't want to overwhelm everyone with information, so let's go with that for now. So, how does the nikification process work? We don't know the exact details, but we have a general idea and some clues. First, nymph is injected into the still living person, or I guess in some cases the recently deceased as well. We can assume this process only works when the subject is aged 10 to 25 and is a female with no brain diseases. Then, they will scan their brain. If their brain has a strong personality, they will get a custom body. If their brain isn't, then they will become a mass-produced Nikke. The custom body is formed by the subject's ideal body based on their brain scan. They may or may not look like their old self. Well, the mass-produced Nikkes share the same look as everyone else. That's not all. They purposely delete their memory and upload a generic memory into their brain through the nymph. The generic memory being, you must protect all humans, and you must fight raptors and save mankind. Those with stronger personalities may sometimes remember memories from their past life. Then, they are given a new name to dehumanize them, to hammer in the fact that they are weapons and are no longer human. They will not be treated like humans anymore, and they will live and die for the sake of humans. This is all explained by Ingrid, the CEO of Legion, one of the 3 big Nikke manufacturers. So, this is very reliable information that we can take as fact. The exact number of ratio of mass-produced to non-mass-produced Nikkes cannot be confirmed, but we do have a rough idea, as well as success rates. Here, we see a picket poster during the early stages of Nikke production. Mortality rate as high as 67.7%. More than half of the remaining 32.3% become mass-produced Nikkes. 99.7% of those suffer from side effects, amnesia, psychosis. This is pretty unreliable information. For starters, they could have pulled the numbers out their ass. Secondly, this was during the early stages of Nikke production. Nikke production had been pushed very far in the current age of the ARC. Nikkes are now produced in assembly lines with the bare minimum of materials required. So we can safely say these numbers are most likely better than in the current time of Nikke. But with the sheer numbers of mass-produced Nikkes we see, the number for them are probably higher than 50% of the successful cases. But wait! When it says 99.7% suffer side effects, amnesia, psychosis, I assume these are the little quirks that some Nikke seems to get after manufacturing, which range from average to detrimental to really powerful. They are abilities that manifest based on your desires or wants while going through the nikification process. And as Rappy explains, you don't get abilities that you don't want. Although I highly doubt the ones with negative quirks wanted it. But just some examples. Alice has high body heat. Drake can feel radio waves. Query has really bad eyesight. Yep, that's a negative quirk right there. Even swapping out her eyes doesn't fix the issue. And then you have the really powerful ones like the ones from Intrinsic Squad. Maiden can hypnotize Nikkes with her voice. And Guillotine can shut down the Nikke's core with her eye. The core being the Nikke's heart. So that is the Nikkification process. But what exactly is a Nikke made of? Now, here's a problem. Because the game is very inconsistent in what a Nikke is made of. Sometimes they are referred to as steel constructs, sometimes as meat or flesh. Nikkes can eat, they can drool, they can cry, they can sweat, they can bleed, and they can even poop. Yes, it's canon. Nikkes can and do poop. I hope that didn't break your mind. At times they mention they have bones and can break them and heal them. We know this for sure because Nikke braces exist to help Nikkes heal broken bones. Other times they are said to have a steel body. If we look at this cutscene early in the game, what is this? This does not look like flesh and organs. The lore says Nikke body is identical to the human body in every way down to the organs. The only difference is the core inside every Nikke. The answer for this cutscene is they probably retcon some lore along the way because in the later cutscenes, it shows Nikkes with flesh and blood. Not to mention all the eating and pooping and metabolism and the ability to grow fat or muscle, or at least until the 9th generation of Nikkes, which made Nikke bodies static and cannot change, evidenced by Laplace being one of the earliest 9th generation and being unable to grow muscle mass. However, there may be another explanation. Nikkes can swap bodies. Not every Nikke is a combat Nikke. Some Nikkes are non-combatants. Mighty Tools, for example, build stuff inside the Ark. Protocol Squad works for the central government and are so important that if they die, the Ark will fall apart. Swapping bodies proven with Privity and Triangle Squad during a side quest. Privity often switches body and has said in her non-combat body, she is no stronger than a human. So this probably means when they're up on the surface and fighting, they could be completely steel. But this doesn't explain the leg brace or the blood from cutscenes, so this is probably not the case. Not to mention the pilgrims stay on the surface the entire time and they are not fully steel, so I don't know here. The only thing that we know 100% is the human brain sitting inside the brain container. It's never really explained how body swapping works, but I assume we can just plop out the brain and put it into another body. As we can see multiple times in games that as long as the brain survives, they can be plopped into any other body and even have their heads reattached. Lamilla of Unlimited Squad explains how Nikke brains can survive for about 3 hours outside of the body, and lost Nikkes will purposely remove their brain and put it elsewhere to keep it safe when they are stuck in the cold. Meaning, they can just open their heads and remove it without any trouble. She also explained how there are severe side effects if the brains are kept outside the body for too long, such as asynchronization, mental breakdowns, and amnesia. And in Tuvei's event, we also see Nikkes who are heavily injured and put their brain inside brain storages to keep it safe for days and even weeks when their bodies were severely damaged. So, removing brain from their cells seems like a pretty normal and easy thing to do. Although in the case of those Nikkes, it was more of an act of desperation and they suffer mental degradation as a result. But when you think about it, why keep a fleshy, frail human body? Why not choose the certainty of steel? Or even better, a stronger, more practical form than the human form? The answer is, they did. And it didn't work out well. Well, during our first date with Rappy, we asked this question and she explains it. It's because the mental health of the Nikkes. The 3rd generation and later Nikkes are powered entirely by their core, while earlier generations still requires the bare minimum of calories to supply the human brain. So the Nikkes we know now, they have no need to eat, or sleep, or bathe, or poop. Then, why do they do it? To trick themselves into thinking they are still human. Once the mind becomes aware that they are not human, they suffer a cognitive dissonance. And if that cognitive dissonance is too great, they may suffer something called a mind switch. Once the brain cannot cope with the cognitive dissonance, it undergoes a personality change. While that itself doesn't sound very harmful, but most of the time they go insane. They are referred to as irregular and will attack friend or foe. The only way to fix this issue is termination. Even a mind wipe wouldn't fix it. More about that later. So, because of this, Nikkes are all humans that hold guns. While less effective, they won't suffer mind switches or breakdowns like this. However, we do know that this is not the only time Nikke suffer mind switches. Here, we have a video report from a commander named Jonathan, pinned down by raptors on the surface. He decided the only way to survive was to sacrifice 5 of his Nikke to save the rest of the squad. In his words, this turned out to be a terrible miscalculation. The sight of their comrades giving their lives away proved to be too traumatic for 2 of the surviving Nikkes, and they underwent a mind switch. The other 2 Nikkes shot and killed them. That made their own mental condition unstable as well. You see, extreme trauma also causes mind switch. But the truth is, irregulars are very common occurrence in the arc, and something as little as checking if a Nikke is irregular will cause them to become one from the panic, as indicated by Ingrid. This is incredibly dangerous and unreliable. So, Nikke look like humans? They talk like humans? They think like humans? They live their lives like humans? Alongside humans? But they are a ticking time bomb. Nikke phobia exists, but not for this particular reason. It's because human evolution heavily benefited from affinity bias. We tend to trust people who are similar to us, whether through religion, gender, skin color, age, tribe of origin. Why? Because the ones who didn't are likely killed by other tribes. Nikkes are not human. Humans are biased to fear the unknown. But this is not the only reason. You see, propaganda plays a big role as well. During the early days of the Rapture War, Nikkes were treated as the heroes of mankind, the goddess squad, were to humans real-life goddesses of victory. They worshipped them. However, to consolidate power for themselves, the central government banished the goddess squad to the surface and started treating Nikkes as mere weapons. In the safety of the Ark, heroes aren't needed. So over time, the treatment of Nikkes became worse and worse. The commander is seen as strange because he shows affection to Nikkes. Although there are cases, as proven by the Nikke foe ranting at the commander, others are doing the same thing too, even going as far as dating Nikkes and treating them as a human being. Then there are Nikkes such as Privity, who hides the fact that she is a Nikke and befriends humans. We even have the CEO showing affection for Nikkes. Mustang showing his affection by choosing not to mind wipe his Nikkes, by giving up significant power to the central government. Or Suyin, committing treason to save her most favorite Nikke. However, this is not very common. The truth is, the treatment of Nikkes is very dark and brutal. Nikke rights activists are treated as terrorists. Even the belief that Nikkes are the same as humans is considered illegal by the central government. The act of insubordination is an immediate execution on the spot. The relationship of a Nikke is a slave and master. A Nikke cannot harm humans, so if a human decides to attack a Nikke, they have no option but to take the beating and potentially die without the option to defend themselves. Mass-produced Nikkes, once they reach the end of their use, are discarded or recycled for parts to make new Nikkes. And sometimes they are even sold to the Outer Rim, which their combat skills remove. There they are used as slave labor who do not need to eat or sleep, or maybe even the frontline fighters. Even worse, Nikkes have also been taken away and forced into prostitution. All of this silently approved by the higher-ups in the central government. All these downsides, yet so many young people wish to become Nikkes, all to preserve humanity and fight for the future eternally. But are Nikkes eternal? The nymphs can repair the brain somewhat, but it's said the brain will eventually stop working, so not quite immortality. Lily-Waste, the prototype, is said to be designed with a short lifespan, and her lifespan was around 200 years. So the current day Nikkes with better technological advancements are probably much higher than that. You would think that Nikkes would be treated with respect as they are fighting for humanity, but that's definitely not the case. Like many dystopian societies, the rich consolidate all the power, and entertainment is clearly where all the money goes to in the arc, while the military has to beg for donations to keep a single ship afloat, a ship that serves no purpose on the surface, yet was made out of pride for the rich. Commanders are trained in less than a year and sent out to the surface where the survival rate of their first mission is around 30%. They are paid a meager wage, treated as mercenaries, and forced to beg for money from other commanders just to survive. Does this look like a population that's using their money efficiently? No. But more about the arc, the faction, the places in a later episode. That would be too much to explain right now. So, in the end, what is a Nikke? To the central government, they are weapons. To the commanders, they are slaves. To the citizens, they are hope for the future. While to some, they are an evil existence. And to the commander and us, they are friends and companions. This marks the end of the very first episode of Nikke Lore. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned a thing or two, or maybe develop new appreciation for Nikke's story. If you liked the video, give it a like. If not, give it a dislike. Let me know in the comments what you think about the video, or maybe a topic you would like to see explored. Thank you very much for watching.